guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another race day here on F1 Fanatics. And for the first time out of this, which I think is quite impressive, we've gone with a classic race review that was actually the F1 Rewind.
Yeah.
The day before.
This was a popular weekend for the 2008 British Grand Prix, I think it's fair to say.
It was indeed. I know, obviously, Rob from Everything Racing Podcast did his kind of classic race review of it earlier in the week. Obviously, the race was streamed live on YouTube yesterday on Formula One's channel. We took advantage of that, gave it a watch. And with commentary, which is always a bonus kind of with these races. And here it is today with our classic race review. And it was, a race very much encapsulates a fantastic drive by Lewis in the wet.
Yeah, it was just domination, really.
It really was. So we'll start off in order. And then, as usual with these kind of classic race reviews, it'll probably bounce a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
Before giving our rounding off thoughts. But stay tuned for that and make sure you kind of get involved in talking about it, because it was actually a really great race.
It was. I think it's the most exciting race we've seen.
Yeah, in terms of it did really have a little bit of everything involved, which was great. So it started off with Heikki Kovalainen. He was on pole position. I believe he had secured it by over half a second on his teammate, on second place, who was in second place? Mark Webber?
Yes, I think so.
I believe it was Webber, Raikkonen and Lewis.
Yeah. Maybe Webber and Kimi were possibly the other way around.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were going, but that's how the race started. But Lewis had pretty much a fantastic start to the race, overtook the Ferrari and Red Bull into the first corner, and it looked like, with how he flew off the start, that he'd overtaken Kovalainen as well, but he didn't quite overtake him.
No, there was a quite an aggressive slam the door shut move from Kovalainen. Nearly took them both out the race, and I think they even touched. I think it was.
Yeah, I believe it was Kovalainen's rear right and Lewis's front left touched, and it gave Kovalainen a little bit of a wobble on the back end, but he managed to go and hold the lead.
But later in the race, we will see that Kovalainen wobble doesn't need contact to happen on every corner. But yes, on to the next part.
On to the next part, which is just lap one. Webber spins.
Yeah, so Webber dropped down to fourth, I believe, and then he spun, which on the spinning on the first lap, you then go to the back of the pack, basically. I think it was in last at that point.
Yeah, and then was followed by Felipe Massa spinning.
Who became quite familiar with the back of the pack. But yeah, that was spin number one from Massa.
Oh, poor Felipe.
Yeah.
And then Coulthard and Vettel came together. A young Sebastian Vettel in the Toro Rosso, Toro Rosso at that time. Sorry, I wanted to go back for Tauri, but obviously that's 2019. Sorry, 2020. Oh, no, I've even got there. I don't even know. Who are they anymore? Who are they? But Sebastian Vettel was out, and I think it was actually still in that gravel trap that became rather accustomed. It's in the last couple of corners of the lap. No, sorry, it's not, is it? Because we're thinking about it. One of the weird things of watching this in Silverstone, obviously I got so accustomed with the new kind of Silverstone pitch straight. And it was quite funny actually watching on the footage that obviously it was the old national pitch straight. Well, not old, but the relevant one at the time from there. And the construction of the new start pitch straight had not even been built yet. So it was a bit weird.
There. It was weird.
It was. But anyway, there was a gravel track that would become accustomed to a lot of drivers and a lot of retirements during the race. But
claimed a lot of cars there.
yeah, but Coulthard and Vettel were our first victims.
Yeah, Coulthard was the. I'm trying to think of the word. The crasher. He took out Vettel.
Yeah.
It was his final year. I didn't realise that was his 2008 Coulthard's final year.
Well, yeah, because obviously Vettel got promoted up to Red Bull in 2009.
Yeah, he crashed quite a lot, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. But and unfortunately, DC's a good driver. Obviously spent many years at McLaren and as them. So I do feel harsh that the instance that he's really come up in our classic race reviews hasn't been his finest moment.
Taken out of the drivers. It hasn't been. Oh, Coulthard put a really great display there. It's like, oh, Coulthard took out another one.
That's another one to the count. But on lap 4, then Lewis Hamilton overtook Heikki Kovalainen. It was a good little battle,
Yeah,
and
Kovalainen wasn't looking confident at all.
No,
very squirrely out of corners. It wasn't really raining that heavy. I think it was a bit of light rain. Tracks was quite damp.
I think it had even stopped raining by this point. If anything, it was light drizzle.
Yeah.
But yeah, in fairness, it felt like with Heikki that it was a air of inevitability about Hamilton overtaking him, rather than would Kovalainen go on and win this race?
Yeah.
It didn't ever look like that might happen in this situation. But Hamilton would then overtake, and pretty much for the rest of the race, didn't really look back.
No.
Apart from this kind of first section Raikkonen had managed to get himself up to second place by this point.
Yes, yeah. Because Webber had gone, Kovalainen had spun, he'd done his first spin, so he was back. Kimi went past him. Kimi was on the hunt.
And he was really cutting Hamilton's lead.
Yeah, it was actually making time.
Yeah, it was. I think by the time they got to that first pit stop, the gap between them was less than a second.
Yeah, apparently more rain was on the way, so when they came into the pit, McLaren went for fresh set of Inters. They were like, it's not going to be that bad. Ferrari were like, no, we're just going to refuel Kimi, because the rain's going to come and he may have to go into full wets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bad decision. Because the rain that came at that stage, it came, but it meant that Kimi had already worn down his set of intermediates and he was losing like 8-9 seconds a lap. Yeah. Martin Brundle was tearing his hair out in the commentary box. He was like, why don't they just pit him? He's losing so much time.
The time 40 seconds he lost by not pitting. It was
shoot. And basically, so the only battle we would have had for the lead of the race was taken through Ferrari's strategy call.
Yeah.
It wasn't great.
No.
We do have to mention, I think, before Hamilton overtook Lewis. Hamilton overtook. He wouldn't overtake himself. Before he overtook Heikki, Massa had another spin. By this stage.
We were on spin number 2 from Massa.
Yeah, I think lap 3 we'd... and then after that, he had a bit of a quieter time.
Yeah.
Poor Felipe Massa, I think in total in this race, ended up spinning 5 or 6 times.
I think... Well, we only saw 5. His current record was 5 spins in a race, we were told. I'm sure he was trying to beat it, but I think we only saw 5.
Yeah, so that's disappointing for Felipe. He wasn't able to beat that record, and it's clearly a record he was looking to beat.
Yes, yeah.
Definitely.
He was broadcast.
He was leading the championship up until this point. Ferrari so far in the season have been pretty dominant. I think they'd come first and second in, I want to say, 5 out of the races so far in the season. I probably should have checked that out before throwing that out there. But Ferrari were looking the more dominant car, and Lewis had only in the championship won in Australia and in Monaco, and had dropped to 4th in the championship before this race. A certain young Robert Kubica in the BMW Sauber was actually ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the championship at this stage. So, how's it? But yeah, Felipe just had one of those days to forget. And yeah, the first part of the race was kind of dominated by getting to that first pit stop, and the people who pitted for fresh tyres tended to do well. Nick Heifeld in the other BMW Sauber was driving a great race. He
was kind of a unsung, well, I'm going to say hero, but kind of unsung really good performance there.
He just got the job done.
It was solid. He did what Lewis did, but just a bit slower.
I mean,
it was spotless, really.
I mean, we forget, obviously, well, Sauber, it's now Alfa Romeo, branded with the Sauber team, but we probably forget, back then the combination with BMW Sauber was actually quite a successful one, and up until this point they were second in the constructors. They were ahead of McLaren in the constructors because Kubica and Heidfeld had just been regular point scorers, and Kubica had actually won a race that season as well. So it was a pretty impressive car, but Nick, quietly under the radar, just did his thing. I think he might have been one of the only ones, I can't really remember Nick spinning out at all. Or if he did, it wasn't anything major.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There was a lot of cars spinning. I think the next part of this is just pan. So normally races, we get the pan shot of someone parking to the side of the road with the older races, and we don't really get a mention. It's like, oh, it's him, and then we go back to the race. This one, we weren't panning to cars on the side of the road, we were panning to cars spinning around.
And it was all at the same spot. So they'd come obviously down the Hangar Straight into the... If you think about it on the modern track now, they go the right-hander and then straight, and then it's the kind of tight left-hander before the loop, before coming onto the what is now the pit straight.
Yeah.
Well, the start-finish line straight. Yeah, that before that left-hander, cars were aquaplaning so much, like their tyres just went.
Yeah,
and
the two Force Indias went out very similar ways on that spot because they suddenly lost it, and then they went flying across the grass, sideways across the track. Both of them nearly took someone out, and then just ended up in the gravel.
It was funny. I think. I can't remember who Sutil was almost took out. It might have been Barrichello?
No, the other B.
Button?
No, the other B.
There's more Bs.
No, I've lost. I want to say no. No, I haven't got it.
Okay, it's gone. It's gone. But
it's like Bayless or something like that.
Bayless.
Is the driver called?
No, there used to be an old England cricket coach called Bayless.
No, there was a driver with a... It was in a blue car. It was in a blue car.
He would have been Rosberg or Nakajima then.
No.
Because that would have been the Williams, which had another interesting one. Actually, Nakajima went under the radar, had a fairly decent race for the Williams, because by this stage, Williams were getting into their uncompetitive streaks. But yeah, it was just weird that it was the same spot. They just completely lost it and got absolutely beached in this. I suppose it's a gravel trap, but it just looked like it was a freshly kind of ploughed field.
Yeah. It was that spot, and I also just remembered it was the one before that pit straight, because everyone kept almost going down the pit lane as they span, and it was that.
Out of Woodcote, Luffield, Brooklands, and Woodcote. They really struggled to get, because that's it in the rain. Because obviously a lot of these corners you can just go flat out, and put middle, and it's finding in these kind of changeable conditions when's the right time to do the throttle. And a lot of drivers struggle there, especially in what probably defined the race, and what kind of made it really interesting was the heavy downpour that came.
Yes, yeah.
and it was them struggling.
That's when the spin started.
That was when, up until that point, you'd had a few spins.
Yeah,
And
Master had gone a couple of times, Kovalainen had gone a couple of times.
Exactly. Hamilton was dominating because Ferrari had mucked up the strategy. Fernando Alonso had had a good race up until that point, and then they didn't change his tyres as well, so he was dropping off a cliff. Nelson Piquet went out the same spot that the Force Indias did. But yeah, it kind of looked like it might just kind of go into a lull. There might be a little bit of battling throughout, but no one was really getting touched. But yeah, then this heavy rainfall came down, and it just basically made everything just go mental.
Yeah. Massa put in a few more spins, and then everyone started spinning. Kimi even went.
Kimi spun twice. Webber spun again.
Lewis's one mistake of the race, he went a bit wide.
Yeah,
coming up to the pit straight.
Didn't spin, but yeah, went a little bit wide.
He had to cut the corner. Yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy. And Rubens Barrichello and Honda, going back to it, they had their Earth cars. But yeah, Honda and Button. Again, the season before that kind of magic story of Brawn GP happened, they'd struggled. They'd had a really poor start to the season, and it wasn't great for Honda. But Rubens and Button were the only ones to go on full wets, and surprisingly, actually, this was one performance in the rain that Jenson Button actually didn't do particularly well in.
No, I think he crashed out later. Well, not crashed out. I don't really know what happened to him. We got a brief replay.
Yeah, he ran wide, and I think he carried on.
So he did end up finishing?
I think he did, but he finished outside the point, so it was irrelevant. But Rubens Barrichello basically went onto the full wets, and everyone's like going around on ice skates on an ice rink, and they're just like spinning around, and Rubens is absolutely storming it. Yeah. I think at one stage he was 30 seconds quicker than a Lewis Hamilton lap.
Yes, I think so.
And on average, he was about 9 seconds quicker than everybody else on the field.
Yeah.
And he basically worked his way up to second place.
Yeah, it was a dominating display from Barrichello on this full race.
But and it was even more surprising because they'd mucked up his pit stop onto the full wets because I can't remember, there was a refuelling issue, and actually the refuelling issue meant that he had to pit again, which meant that he lost second and had to pit for third. He finished third in the end. But yeah, they double stacked it, cost Jensen some time as well, and it just kind of didn't quite play out as they want. But that was pretty much the only mistake from Honda and Barrichello for the whole race. But it was a very good race from them. Heidfeld and Barrichello both drove very solid races in terms of that, and I think one point we've got to note from that, obviously you look back at these races and you kind of see the cars and different, and obviously we'd had for a few years the kind of the funny front wings with the kind of hoot and looped airflows and different ones, some having that kind of extra little winglet coming across. Yeah. But it was definitely the era of the winglets.
Yeah, some very aggressive looking cars out there.
Yeah,
the Williams.
The BMW Sauber was aggressive.
Had like horns. It was like, geez, calm down, guys.
The Honda had some weird little front winglets in those. The side of the McLaren was crazy in terms of the winglets. It did show. This is often like a thing. Obviously, yesterday, me and Jonty spoke about the best innovations in F1. In terms of, it was talking a little bit at times that sometimes when we spoke about the X-wings that appeared in the 1997, which were just kind of little wings on the side pods that happened. Sometimes what makes a car go fast doesn't necessarily make a car look good.
Yeah.
So they're just like, shove everything up.
Science guys say this makes it go faster. Let's do it.
We need all the speed. But this race was just brilliant to watch because the first part was really dictated. We'll round off this talking about Lewis Hamilton's drive because it was almost faultless and was just an incredible drive. But the first part was just managing those conditions from dry to wet, getting the strategy right, who would make the right call on the tyres. But when the rain came in, it just took things to another level because then there were spins, but then Lewis somehow on the intermediates had managed to build up over a minute gap by this stage.
He had a couple of laps where he was taking a bit cautious and then all of a sudden he started flying again.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
But we also, actually, the one thing we were sitting there going, the one thing this race hasn't had is it hasn't had like good battles. But then at the end, you had a Fernando ahead of Kimi Räikkönen, and it was fantastic kind of a defensive drive there, but Kimi came out on top. But then you had him being a defensive drive against Nakajima.
Kovalainen.
Kovalainen, for ages, Kovalainen couldn't get past him, and I think it really showed that Heikki, he struggled within that McLaren team. Obviously, he was the rookie teammate of Lewis Hamilton, and it was quite a surprise actually because for McLaren, one of the top teams at the field, yes, Lewis is a special talent.
Very young driver.
But the year before, they had a two-time world champion in Alonso and a rookie in Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Now they had basically two
rookies.
exactly fresh-faced rookies. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton had the equal best rookie season ever in 2007. But yeah, it was crazy. But Heikki really looked like he struggled all race with the conditions. He just was not comfortable. And he did actually manage to get past Fernando in the end, didn't he? But it was a really great kind of battle intrigue. Fernando being a little bit wily in terms of how he was defending the line, and Heikki trying to get different lines trying to go. And I think it was, Heikki had to go very wide on a drier line to kind of get past Fernando in the end to go. And then, the cars behind him, Fernando managed to kind of make stick from there. But that was a really intriguing end to the race, and it was fantastic to see because in the rain, we always say it, rain's it's a great leveller, and it kind of means that the battles, and because the racing line is the one the cars keep going on and finding the dry section of the track, there's only a very small line that these cars can safely race on, and either side, especially with the majority of the grids, well, literally pretty much all the grids bar the Hondas were on the intermediates. It made it even worse because, the potential drag plane. But I think even the sun came out at the end.
Yeah, I think it was actually blue skies and sunshine at the end. Or at least for a good part of the end, towards the end of the race.
Well, it was a brilliant race.
Yeah. It was literally cars flying everywhere. We had the battles. We had the just sheer masterclass of Lewis Hamilton in the rain. We had it all.
And that's probably what we'll round off this review with, in terms of Lewis Hamilton's drive was, they kept mentioning it in commentary in terms of there were people going, what's so special about this Lewis Hamilton kid? Who is Lewis Hamilton? Why is he so special? And this performance is it. I believe there'd been a little bit of controversy around it before. Lewis wasn't. I think he was struggling in the headspace. He'd received a penalty earlier in the season for driving into the back of Räikkönen, and received a 10-place grid penalty in the next race. I think that was the race before actually, and things weren't necessarily going right for Lewis. Like we said, he dropped from first to fourth in the championship. But this drive was, he finished 1 minute and 8 seconds ahead of the rest of the field come the end.
Yeah.
Like, Lewis was on his victory lap and Nick Heidfeld still hadn't crossed the finish line.
Yeah.
But
I think he lapped everyone bar Barrichello and Heidfeld, didn't he?
Mm.
Yeah. So
it was it was just such a good... And the really top part of this drive was when that heavy rain came down and they pitted him for an extra set of intermediates, and he then built a lead on top of that.
Yeah.
It was...
unbelievable, really.
He was almost like driving his own race. Everyone else was struggling. Obviously, Barrichello, on the better compound for the conditions, was absolutely flying. But in terms of the intermediates, Lewis was just in a different ballpark. And it would have been interesting to see what the battle would have been like between him and Kimi if they'd got the tyre choice. Well, if they'd actually given Kimi a fresh set of inters at that, because it would have been interesting. But
I don't think, because Kimi was spinning, he was struggling when the rain came.
He was, but then you're probably going, Lewis was in a place where he could control, and by controlling it, he wasn't under any pressure. So his only battle was himself and the conditions.
Yeah.
Go from there. Kimi was having to fight and push the card. Those cars who were further back, they were having to push the cars harder than they would be wanting to in those conditions, because they were fighting for places. The masterclass of Lewis was he managed to get so far ahead of everyone.
He could control it.
Yeah. So it then became easy because he wasn't fighting any cars. He was just fighting himself conditions. And I think in the post race interview, he kind of talks about he was like going, "So come on, just get to the end." He could see the fans cheering. He was like, "Come on, just keep this car on the racetrack." He was nervous. Yeah. He was there. It was like, but apparently he was saying, he was thinking to himself, I don't know how much of this is kind of just PR in terms of, but he genuinely, in fairness, it would make sense for a young driver, because a young driver, you wouldn't be kind of as kind of clean. He was letting his head run away with things, and well, this was his first ever win at Silverstone.
Yeah.
So he was going, this will be noted as my greatest win today. Obviously, he hadn't had many wins to date in his career. He'd only had six. He'd only had 6 previous to this one, and this was his 7th career win. But it was still, just pretty special to have that kind of recognition going. And I think probably it's still regarded by most people as one of Lewis's finest ever drives. Yeah.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it was just incredible how dominant it was that no one was even on near the same level as him that day. There were some great drivers out there.
Yeah, it was great, but that was it. That was the race. It was great to watch back on the F1 Rewind, and those races, the positive with these races are that they are just on the F1 YouTube channel. So all the F1 Rewinds that have been to date, you have highlights of it, but you also have the full race replays on there as well. So you can just go back and watch that at any time. I don't know how long they'll keep these up for. I mean, they might keep them up for a long time because they got F1 TV, so they might as well. But yeah, it was a brilliant race to watch. And if you ever want to see Lewis outside of the Mercedes days, this is a pretty good, and you could see just as he kind of pulled in to, before he gets out the car to kind of get the way in and everything before walking up on the podium, you could just see the relief and the happiness on his face. He was absolutely buzzing, and this win meant so much to him. It was awesome to watch.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's it from us. Another classic race review done. We hope you do enjoy these. We love kind of getting together and talking about these races because it's nice to kind of relive some of these historical races in class races. And well, that's a note for next week. We are going to go very historical in terms of we've found footage of the 1969 British Grand Prix, which I believe was won by Jackie Stewart. No idea what the race footage is like or how it... I mean, with some of the races in the 80s, we were struggling to follow things.
Yeah, this is, So
in 1969, this is going to be great fun. I have no idea what's going on, so make sure you kind of tune in for that. But if you enjoyed today's classic race review, and and enjoyed it. What? And you're new around here? Oh, Jesus, right, start there. If you've enjoyed today's classic race review, and you are new around here, what can they do, Stephen?
They can like, they can subscribe, and they can ding that bell.
Ding that bell.
Ding that bell.
And also comment down below, what do you think of Lewis Hamilton's drive? Is it still one of his greatest ever wins? What were your favourite moments from the race? Do you feel sorry for poor Felipe Massa? It just all went wrong for him. And forgetting this made the championship fight very exciting.
Yeah.
You had 3 drivers tied on points. You had Raikkonen, Massa and Hamilton all on 48 points at the end of the Grand Prix.
Kubica was just 2 points behind
Yeah, he was on 46. So you had 4 drivers, 3 car manufacturers in with, you know, a shot at the title at this stage. It was fascinating to watch, but yeah.
Yeah, it actually happened. There wasn't actually just one car manufacturer winning the championship.
And one driver just steaming away. Changes happened, guys. Changes happened. And it is the last time that, actually the 2008 season, that the drivers' championship and constructors was won by 2 different teams, because Lewis Hamilton won the drivers' championship, his first ever world title. Felipe Massa, is that Glock? Oh dear. That classic, poor Felipe. Brazil, bit of wet as well that day, I think, as well. But and also Ferrari won the Constructors' Championship. But anyway, we've waffled long enough in this kind of, as always on the channel. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.